All right, back to you here on the Dave Elswick Show as we continue our Wednesday look at the news and the issues that are going to be affecting you, this week, next week, and probably in the years to come. I thought that was an interesting interview we had with Congressman Bruce Westerman. And now you understand why people pull their hair out when they're dealing with California. I mean, California dumps more fresh water into the Pacific Ocean than what they use. And it's amazing what they do. And that they have, if they would, build an aqueduct system, so to speak, from the north to the south, that particular state has enough water to take care of themselves. And if they had to tap into the Colorado once in a while, maybe to take care of some shortages, that wouldn't be a big deal. But that's not the way that they do it. They use a lot of water from the Colorado, which puts a lot of stress on Arizona and Nevada and other states that are east of the Sierra Madre Mountains there in California. I thought it was interesting listening to what the congressman had to say. I'm also interested why there's not some form of challenge being levied against all these sanctuary cities that what they're doing is illegal, and get it up in front of the Supreme Court and try to get this worked out, that what the states are saying somehow trumps what the federal government is trying to do with, immigration. That is a federal government number one issue that they have to deal with. And these people that are going out and hindering ICE and other organizations that are trying to uphold the law, the federal law on immigration, I think they should be sued as much as they can. I mean, if taxpayers get irritated when states have laws that cost them money. But you know what they really get irritated at, taxpayers? I know I do, and that is if what the federal government or the state government is doing is just costing them tens of millions of dollars to do themselves, when the federal government should be doing that. You listen to these mayors of these cities, and you listen to some of the governors, like Walz and like the idiot there in Illinois, and you listen to the mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Minneapolis, and they say, we want ICE out of our neighborhoods. Well, you have no say in it. They are a federal agency that takes care of immigration law, and they have every right to come to your city or your state and to find out if you're keeping the law up the way it's supposed to be. Because if you don't oversee them, if you don't watch what they're doing, you end up what we got in Minnesota, where we've got $440 million being wasted. Now, I get irritated by, stupid programs that the federal government does, like building treadmills for shrimp and things of that nature, just like everybody else. But when I'm looking at fraud, waste, and, graft that's going on in states, and the states aren't doing anything to oversee these programs, and they're just letting tons of money flow out of federal programs and go to their people in their states, and they're breaking the law, and they're not doing anything to uphold the law, and they're telling the people who are helping to uphold the law that you need to get the F out of my state, something's got to change. I mean, something's got to change. I know that the president took away the protective status of Somalians yesterday, and rightly so. The government in Somalia is much better now than it used to be. It's I don't know if it's as closely run by the warlords as it was back when Black Hawk Down happened, but it has gotten better. And those people were brought here to the United States because of, what things were like in their country. Well, that's gotten better. Time, correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to do so. You can go on my Facebook page and put a statement up to our broadcast on the internet, and it's time for them to go home. Go back to your country now and help it move forward. That's what you should do. You shouldn't be allowed to stay here in the United States, especially stay here in the United States and be on government-assisted programs. See, that's the type of stuff that will drive me crazy when I see people that are not even citizens of this country and they're getting all kinds of coverage, all kinds of money from federal programs that they shouldn't be getting, but they're getting it because they're, the federal government, when they first were allowed to come here, was because their countries were, S-holes, as the president said. I mean, they were. Let's quit mincing our words about some of this stuff. Some of this is that, there are a bunch of idiots over in a lot of those countries. I'm not saying that we need to spread American republicanism all over the world. I think that, as a country, reaching out and trying to help countries get their countries in order and letting them make a move towards being a better and more efficiently run country is to our benefit as it is to their benefit. Maybe we'll open up some trade with that country, and good things will happen. But there's one thing that everybody has to understand. I mean, even Jesus made sure that we understood this. And that was, we will have the poor with us forever. Because you know what? Some people refuse to get off their butts and work. And it's up to us to do everything we can to help them get to work and to do a job and to make a wage that would be livable. In our country, in the last, I would say, 20 years, our work ethic has gone basically the way of the dodo bird. It's disappeared. There's plenty of people that are like, I'm willing to sit on my rump and not work at all if the federal government's going to hand out checks. Give me one of them government checks. I'll take one of them government checks. And that's how I'll live. Well, that's not the responsibility of the government. You socialists have been trying to change that over the years and trying to make sure that the government is handing out, money that they're taking from me to other people because they refuse to make good decisions about their lives. Well, I'm tired of it. I've been tired of it a long, long time. And I'll probably be tired of it after they lay me to rest someplace. But the bottom line is That's got to get taken care of. We have got to come to an understanding, as the Bible says, as the Apostle Paul said, if you don't work, neither shall you eat. We got to get back to believing that stuff. I don't believe in cleanliness is next to godliness. That's Jesus never said that. But when man and when Adam and Eve were put in the garden, what did God do with Adam when He first put him in the garden? He gave him a job. He gave him a job. He gave him a job to help take care of the garden. So evidently, that's baked into us, that we want to work, unless we decide to ignore God's command and do things a different way. And if you do things a different way, and you're not following what the good Lord says, then don't expect to live anywhere that doesn't have problems if you're thumbing your nose at God. Always remember, Bible's clear. God is not mocked. Can't do that and expect that it's going to be good for you. All right, 17 after 8, our first break of this hour happens about your health insurance. As conservatives, we fight for smaller government, but we need to fight harder when it comes to health care. I mean, a lot more tough as far as health care. We got to get to a way where we know we're going to have to pay something for our health care, and we got to maybe pick up and cover some treatments that we take. I've noticed this year I've had when it comes to X-rays, I get a little bit charged on my Medicare for those X-rays. Well, I don't mind paying a little bit on my X-rays and things of that nature. I had a C-SPAN, a CAT scan just the other day, and after the government had paid their part and all the rest, I still owed another $45. I don't mind paying that. I'd rather I didn't have to pay it by my being stupid and falling down and fracturing a rib and had to go take pictures of it. I wish I didn't have to do that, but $45 seems like a pretty good deal to me. But it's time for us to change the health care system, and the Democrats are going to have to change the way that they view health care and how much we're putting into the system and how much our citizenry is not. Conservative health care plans should reward you, not insurance companies. It should be that they reward you for making good decisions, not the government. I mean, you make some smart health care choices, having FHS accounts and all the rest. You shouldn't have to pay more because you're doing what you should be doing. YourHealthPlanMan.com has plans for you all year round. Pat Davis and his family have over 30 years of combined experience to help you with your health insurance. Many of their premiums can save you 30 to 50%. Incredible savings for your families. In fact, so good, many move from their work plans because their work plans aren't as good as what the folks at your health plan man can get for you. You often get paid to go to the doctor with some of these plans, and you get even more back for urgent care. Their team has saved clients literally thousands of dollars in premiums. So here's what you need to do. You need to text the word NOW to 501-650 6520. And that's going to go to yourhealthplanman.com. And then they're going to send you an overview of the different plans that they have that can help you and show you how you can bring down your premiums and you can bring down your subsidies. Don't wait. Text for yourhealthplanman.com the word NOW, 501-650-6520. Do it right now. All right. Back with you here on the Dave Elswick Show. And sitting here talking about the news that's going on and pontificating a little bit, getting up on my soapbox and talking about, how much money we waste in our country through fraud, waste, and abuse. And think how much money it might be if you take one city, all right, Minneapolis, and it was $440 million that they were peeling off of federal programs. Multiply that just by 50 states. And how much money are we talking? I was listening to a discussion about this on a business channel yesterday, and they said that the amount of money being wasted through the federal government is just about 20% of how much money the federal government gets in per year. We get a little over $2 trillion a year in from taxes. Now, those are getting big numbers now, and I don't have my abacus here in front of me, but I can tell you it's a lot of money that's being, fraud, waste, and abuse. And to be honest, I think perhaps we have to go back and start over. Now, this is never going to happen. Look, I'm smart enough to know that this would never happen. But that, that the federal government is not going to go back and try to put together their programs so that you can't do fraud, waste, and abuse. I don't know if there's any government program you can do to keep from not having fraud, waste, and abuse in it. I mean, just state programs are rife with fraud, waste, and abuse. Since I've been here in Arkansas doing a talk show host, which is, this year is my 26th year here in Arkansas, here's what I've seen. I've seen money be wasted left and right. I'll see them saying that they don't have enough money to take care of kids that are disabled, that they're, 50, 60, $70 million shy. And then all of a sudden, somebody in the state government goes, "Oh, we got that money," and they pull it out their butts. They bring it out of the deepest recesses of their bodies, and suddenly they find it. Well, if they can find, let's say, I'll just go back to when Beebe was in office. He went back and found $50 million in one department. One department, all right? He found $50 million. And everybody jumping up and down and clapping and giving each other high fives. Well, why didn't you know that $50 million was there? Why were you surprised? Why aren't you watching things a little bit better? You're taking my money. Don't you think you should watch out for it and make sure it's being used correctly? For some organizations, that's their only answer to help the poor, is to give them a larger stipend. And if you haven't worked with them and helped them to learn how to take care of the money that they're being given and what kind of food perhaps they should buy with food stamps and teach the women how to cook and things of that nature. Look, there's one fault for that. That's the fault of moms and dads not teaching their own children how to take care of themselves. So, we need to get that reinstated. As the family goes, so will the United States go. I mean, there shouldn't be as many women out there that are single moms. Shouldn't be that way. And I know that there's a lot of politicians don't agree with me, but I think that every birth that happens in Arkansas, there should be paternity made in that and for that birth. We should know who the father is. Because, dude, if you were doing the tango with somebody and it brought us another child, you need to be taking care of that child. You need to be doing that. That's not for me to do. That's not for Steve to do. That's not for you to do. These are children that are being made by other people. And we need to stand up and say, we need to know if you're the father, so that we can have you be responsible for your own child. All right, let's get a break in for news. That's coming up here on the Dave Elswick Show. Then I'll be back to talk more. We have a lot more things to talk about. I want to talk about what happened in the Supreme Court yesterday. They were arguing. It was so funny. Alito said yesterday, real quickly, that if you don't know what sex means, then we might as well quit arguing about this. Let's take a break. All right, back with you here on the Dave Elswick Show. Yesterday, the Supreme Court spent about 3 hours talking about men and women's sports. The Supreme Court looked likely to let state laws protecting women's sports stand. If indeed that's the case, it's going to be a victory for biological reality. Amy Howe, who is the moderator at SCOTUS blog, said this: the Supreme Court, during oral arguments, seemed likely to uphold laws that prohibit transgender women and girls from competing on women's and girls' sports school teams. After nearly 3.5 hours of arguments in a pair of cases from Idaho and West Virginia, a majority of the justices appeared to agree with the states that the laws can remain in place even if it was not clear how broadly their ruling might sweep. Indicative of perhaps a narrow ruling was the query from Justice Kavanaugh. Justice Kavanaugh and several other justices indicated they were reluctant to make a sweeping assertion on the validity of those states' positions. Why would we at this point jump in and try to constitutionalize a rule for the whole country? Kavanaugh asked, that reported by the Wall Street Journal, and Alito answered that question in the line of questioning when he made the statement. He started asking one of the ACLU litigators, well, what are we talking about here about sex? Are we talking boys, girls? Or what exactly are we talking about? And the woman said they really didn't have an answer. That's what she said. We don't have an answer. And Alito looked straight at her and said, then why are we even talking about this if we don't know what the parameters are of what we're talking about? I mean, that just makes sense. If you can't define it, then what are you talking about? You don't know. It's that simple. All right, let's hear it. We can hear something from one of the opening arguments. Here's what it sounded like.
First this morning in case 2438, Little versus Heckox. Mr. Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the Court. Idaho's law classifies on the basis of sex because sex is what matters in sports. It correlates strongly with countless athletic advantages like size, muscle mass, bone mass, and heart and lung capacity. Tragically, but not surprisingly, male athletes have even injured female athletes in many sports. If women don't have their own competitions, they won't be able to compete. Gender identity does not matter in sports, and that's why Idaho's law does not classify on the basis of gender identity. It treats all males equally and all females equally, regardless of identity, and its purpose is exactly what the legislature said, preserving women's equal opportunity. In fact, it's our friends on the other side who want to classify based on gender identity. They're seeking special treatment for males who allegedly lack an unfair advantage, but only if those males also identify as transgender. Denying special treatment isn't classifying on the basis of transgender status. It's consciously choosing not to. Idaho's sex-based classification would get intermediate scrutiny if Hecox challenged it. But Hecox's requested relief presupposes separate women's sports. All Hecox challenges is the law's application to a tiny subset of males who identify as transgender and suppress their testosterone. But that's not how intermediate scrutiny works. Idaho's law is a substantial fit for 99% of males, and a perfect fit is not required. If it were, that would be the end of all sex-based classifications. Finally, a word about mootness. When trying to avoid mootness below, Hecox told the court, "I intend to play women's club soccer this semester, next semester, and through the remainder of my time at BSU." A contradictory post-cert affidavit does not make it absolutely clear this controversy is over, so Hecox's formidable burden isn't met, and this case isn't moot. I welcome the court's questions.
All right. So that was the opening statement from Idaho. And it's legitimate. I think you have to say that's legitimate, what they're saying. The ACLU lawyer was up, not for Idaho. I'm not sure in the arguments where she fell into, whether it was Idaho or West Virginia. But liberal justices and ACLU lawyers are still wrestling with this whole notion of what a woman is. And I was just talking about Alito. Here, I found it. Let me read it to you. We'll start with the ACLU lawyer, Justice Alito. And what is that definition for equal protection processes? What does it mean to be a boy or a girl or a man or a woman? ACLU lawyer, sorry, I misunderstood your question. We do not have a definition for the court, and we don't take issue with, we're not disputing the definition here. What we're saying is that the way it applies in practice is to exclude both birth sex males categorically from women's teams, and that there's a subset of those birth sex males when it doesn't make sense to do so according to the state's own interests. Back to Justice Alito. Well, how can a court determine whether there's discrimination on the basis of sex without knowing what sex means for equal protection purposes? If you've not defined what it is you're talking about, you could be talking about a mountain for all they know. I mean, they literally tried to ignore some of the main thrust of logic when talking about this type of stuff. As you go on, and Justice Brown Jackson has been the subject of much-deserved derision in her word salad. Let me read this for you. Now, this is the woman, and I think it should have made her not a Supreme Court justice when she was in front of the committee, the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, answering questions, and she was asked about males and females. You know, she was asked, what is a woman? And she said, I don't know. I'm not a biologist. Justice Jackson. And so to the extent that you have an individual who says what is happening in this law is that it is treating someone who is transgender but who does not have, because of the medical interventions and the things that have been done, who does not have the same threat to physical competition and safety and all the reasons the state puts forward. That's actually a different class, says this individual. So you're not treating the class the same, and how do you respond to that? Perhaps that's not surprising that kind of an answer came from someone who couldn't define what a woman was during her confirmation hearing because she wasn't a biologist. Should I read that to you again? Because reading it the first time, it didn't make much sense to me. Although I think if I read it a second time, it'd make just the same amount of sense as it did when I read it the first time. Justice Brown Jackson said she's been the subject of derision because of this answer. And so to the extent that you have an individual who says what is happening in this law is that it is treating someone who is transgender but who does not have, because of the medical interventions and the things that have been done, who does not have the same threat to physical competition and safety and all the reasons the state puts forward. That's actually a different class, says this individual. Tommy, did that make any sense to you? I mean, seriously, it makes no sense whatsoever. Is she sisters with Kamala Harris? I'm thinking they're related. That's what I'm thinking, because that was about as clear as mud what that lady just said. It's just amazing. I mean, she reminds me of a person who runs their mouth to try to prove that they're smart. But the longer that they talk, the dumber that you know they are. This is the kind of person my daddy always told me, better to keep your mouth shut so people don't know that you're stupid than to open your mouth up and leave no doubt. And that's what this woman does. They're arguing over something that's already settled about what is a man and a woman, and they want to say, at least Brown did, I don't know what a woman is. I'm not a biologist. Well, then she shouldn't even be listening to the oral arguments that are going on in this. If she can't define a man or a woman, then how in heck can she demand if somebody is being wrongfully treated under the law, as far as equal protection goes? You don't even know what you're trying to protect. That's what it comes down to. Never in my wildest imaginings, as I pay attention to the Supreme Court, and there's a lot of you that are going to say the same thing that I was saying in my head. Why are we even talking about this? It is so self-evident. All right? And I want to say, you think? It's that simple. It is that simple. Anyway, it's looking like the decision, depending on Gorsuch, is going to be either 6-3 or 5-4. Because Gorsuch is, he's not, he understands what a man and a woman is. I mean, he does. He knows what that's all about. But he wants to know how far do these laws reach out into society. Do they have? Are we just going to get it? A look at this, and the justice is going to say, if you're born a biological male, you can't play women's sports? Or are they going to say, if you identify as transgender, under equal protection, you have equal protection to use the women's facilities because you think that you're a woman, so you can use the women's locker room, when you're playing sports. You can use the women's locker room, guys. If you think that you're a female, you can use the women's locker room and shower after you go over and lift at your favorite gym. And, women have no right to say that you're invading their privacy. And then there's all kinds of other areas that this could be directed out at. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it ends up. I personally think that Gorsuch will come back and stay with the majority, and it'll be a 6-3 decision, which, if you're a voter and you're listening to this show, should tell you why you don't want to vote for a Democrat, because they can't even tell what a woman is. All right, a break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up this hour. It's going fast this morning on the Dave Elswick Show. Talking about wasting time over stupid stuff. That's a perfect example. About 3.5 hours of the Supreme Court debating what is a man. And basically it was all about debating, what makes a man, and can a man make himself to be a woman. And, if both of the gentlemen were still alive that discovered DNA, I mean, they're the ones that came down and said there's an X and a Y chromosome, and it if you got two X's, you got two Y's, you're going to have a female, and if you got an X and a Y, you're going to end up with a male. And they're spinning in their graves right now, because this whole thing about transgenderism is, no one, their biology doesn't matter. That's exactly what the left says. Their biology doesn't matter. Their thought process of what they are matters. Now, if having a penis and two testicles or even one testicle makes you a man, that sets you up that you can inseminate a woman so that between the two of you, you can create another human being. If what you think you are makes you so, then that means that a man who thinks that he's a woman would think that he can be a female so that he can have babies too. Well, we know that that's false. That can't happen. But everybody just throws that out the window. They don't want to talk about what the reality of the fact is. They want to talk in, they want to make stuff up. Now, if I have a guy that thinks he's a woman, and so he marries another guy because he wants to be able to have a child. You see where this leads us? this is also what happens when you deny that there are truths in the world. There are truths in the world. There are things that are what they are, and you can't change them. And you have people who, because I've had these discussions before, and I'll be talking with someone, and they said, well, how about somebody who's born with both sex organs? They got, they're born with a vagina and, a small penis or something like that. What do you do in that situation? Well, from what I understand, they choose what sex the person is going to be, whether they're going to be a male or a female, and they make it so. Now that, if you have something that is totally different, something that is going to cause a problem with that, then you got to make the call. I don't know what to tell you. Never, like I said, I never thought that we'd have to sit and I'm going to tell you, in my philosophy classes, no professor ever said, Mr. Elswick, prove to me that you're a male. No, we never had that discussion. That was never a discussion we had, or talked to the person sitting next to me and said, tell me why you know you're a female. And you got the people that would say, well, it's not about what you are, it's about what you think you are. Now you're on a slippery slope, a very slippery slope, because does that only pertain to sex? Does it pertain to frogs? That you can say you're a frog? I mean, it's if you accept the argument that you are what you think you are, you got a problem. You got a problem with life at that point. That's going to be tough for you to take care of. All right, when we come back after the news at the top of the hour, I want to talk about the Hyde Amendment and what's going on in the halls of Congress about that as we get back into the 9 o'clock hour here on the Dave Elswick Show.